Welcome to the Sharp Way Show. I'm so happy to be here this evening, 7 p.m. Eastern. Yes, you have to look at me yet again. It's kind of how I do these things, so thank you so much for showing up. As always, please like, comment, share. Let people know that we are out here. Let people know that this is important to be watching. If you copy, then they will copy you. We have to be the change, right, that we want to see. So go out there, like, comment, share, get those algorithms going. Make sure we don't get canceled and zucked by Zuckerberg and his crew. Let's make sure it works. So please do that, because today I have a super special show. And I mean super special show. I am so lucky, so happy that I have on a show today the one, the only Libertarian presidential candidate, Joe Jorgensen. Joe, Dr. Joe, thank you for coming on.
So great to be here. Thanks, Larry.
And those who want to know more about the good doctor, please, JOJ2020.com. Head over there, click, help out, give, do what you got to do to make sure that people know that she is here and talking and getting stuff done. And there's more than just the two-party boring people. There are cool people to vote for also. And I have one right here. So I guess I want to talk about what the big elephant in the room is. I mean, it's COVID, isn't it? I mean, everyone's talking about COVID. Everyone's worried about it.
Yeah, we're supposed to be in the same room together doing this live. And here we are. I might as well be in Alaska for all you know, but I may be right down the hall and not even it.
Absolutely. And there's so many problems with COVID. One is, obviously it's an actual disease, the virus that's killing people. And the other part is there's a bunch of fear around it that just, if you're not doing what I think you should be doing, somehow you're evil or bad, and the system and the reaction has been crazy. Please give us some sanity, please.
Oh, I wish I could. If I were the president instead of Trump, I think we would have more sanity.
I'm sure of that.
Yeah. First of all, as I mentioned on your show before, I would not put everyone under house arrest. I would not kill tens of millions of jobs. Although when I was here last time, we didn't know, we were only hoping, dreading what was going to happen. We didn't know at the time that it was going to lead to tens of millions of lost jobs, many of them
right.
Gone forever. So that's just tragic. And what I would have done as president is gotten the FDA out of the way, because once again, the FDA is an obstacle. And to use a medical analogy, basically the government breaks your leg and then expects you to be grateful when it hands you a crutch. And what they did here is they broke our legs. They told us we had to stay home. They kept the testing kits from getting to us, so we couldn't be tested. So pretty much we did have to stay home, because who knows, maybe we were sick, since so many people don't have any symptoms. And then they take our money, repackage it, take, of course, a chunk out for overhead,
yes.
and then give it back to us and pretend to be Santa Claus. And here you go. Aren't you happy that we are giving you money? Now, if Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi were taking the money out of their back pocket, fine. But they're not. It's not
right.
And the money has to come from somewhere. And Larry, you know as well as I, the money comes from us.
Yes. Or they do the worst thing, which is they either take it from us, or they wind up through the Fed taking it from our grandkids.
Oh, and that's what it looks like. That's exactly what they're doing. Exactly.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. So I got a crazy question I want to bring up real fast. Do you have a book on libertarian philosophy that you would recommend?
My favorite book of all time is still Animal Farm, which I think explains it all. David Bose actually sent me a book, which I can't wait to read, which I'm sure is very good. I love books by David Bose, and I've read a lot of books by Michael Tanner. Now I realize the question was philosophy, so of course philosophy I have to go with Ayn Rand. But so many good books out there, hard to choose.
Well, always remember, when it comes to Animal Farm, some of us are more equal than others.
Yes.
Absolutely.
As we saw during the coronavirus. And can I point out, most of these people, like Dr. Fauci, like these epidemiologists who were on TV, who were saying, you need to stay home, notice they still got paid.
Yes.
Cuomo got paid. Trump's getting his paycheck. Well, he's donating it, but still.
In theory.
In theory, right. All these people are still getting their paychecks. And I saw this epidemiologist on TV who was saying, I think we're opening up too early. Let's make it another 2 months. And she's obviously sitting in her living room with her laptop. And my thought is, well, easy for you to say. I'm sure you get a very nice paycheck. Oh, and by the way, you didn't lose your job. How about the rest of us? So some are more equal than others. So we've got people with money, with power, with jobs that can be done remotely, telling the rest of America, guess what? You got to stay home.
Well, the worst part is now the government then does this to us, trashes everything, and then gets mad at the states if they don't act fast enough. This is a secondary, right? If you're the president now, right, how do you react to states who some acted harsh, some didn't, some took their cue from President Trump, some didn't, now some are, now some aren't, and now what's wound up happening, I'm sure you see this, now there's even more people upset. And I think it's hurting our society, right? And that people are now making it to where if you do X, that means you like Trump. If you do Y, that means you hate Trump. And it's crazy.
You make a great point, Larry, because you're right. Now wearing a mask has become political. And they have done studies showing that, yes, Republican men apparently are those who wear the mask the least. But we're talking about medicine. We're talking about the human body. The virus doesn't care if you're Libertarian, Democrat, Republican, doesn't care if you're black, white, although, yes, blacks do have a higher rate, although that's probably underlying health. But we all have human bodies, and this should be a human choice, not a political choice. And once again, but see, here's the thing, is what's going on is we've got Democrats and Republicans having this fake war, having this fake controversy about do we stay home, do we not, do we wear masks, do we not, to think that we have a choice with Democrats and Republicans, but we don't. It's a fake choice that really the only alternative is the Libertarian Party, but they're making it seem as though there is a choice. Nice.
The problem I think we have here is when they make you think that, so we think we're on one side or the other, but again, there's no one else.
Right. Exactly.
But there are the people, but they think there's no one else, but there are other people. This is the biggest issue. Their minds get shut off to not hearing anything else, because they're more worried about, I don't like that guy, therefore that's all that matters. My health doesn't matter. My economic health doesn't matter. My physical health doesn't matter. Nothing does.
And, I've never seen it like this. And I know we keep saying it gets worse. I don't see how it can get much worse, how just basically the division that we have. And a lot of people have asked me, well, why do you think we have this division? What happened? How did we get here? And I think the basic problem is that government is just way too big, and that everything has to be a fight. So for instance, and let's just take education as an example, because it's a great example.
Sure.
Let's say that you want prayer in the school for your child, and
Okay.
let's say your next door neighbor doesn't. Now, under the system we have now, what you have to do is you have to fight it out. You have to be enemies. You have to go to the ballot box, because guess what? Winner takes all. Either the schools have prayer or they don't have prayer. However, in a free market system, when you get to keep your own funds and you get to choose what kind of system, now you can send your kid to a school with prayer. Your neighbor can send their kid to a school without prayer, and you can get along. But now you have to go to the ballot in order to decide healthcare, education, retirement, basically anything, and everything is now done through the government, so that you have to get in there. And I've said that voting Libertarian is basically an act of self-defense, because you have to get in there in order to get your choice. And a lot of people have asked me, what do you think about in-person ballot versus mail-in? Or what do you think of this kind of voting? And my answer is, I want to see the government so small that you can stay home from voting and it won't matter, because you get to make your own choices and not have the government make your choices for you. That anything that you voted for is so remotely connected to your life that you really don't care.
So let's now go to that idea, right? The biggest thing we hear is since COVID is, if we only had Medicare for all or Medicaid for all, then this wouldn't have been a problem, right? Magically, this would all be good. So clearly, all you crazy libertarians, now you understand that, Medicare for all is the only answer. Obviously, we hear this all the time. Help us out with this.
When I hear Medicare for all, what I think is VA hospital for all. And one of the things that Dr. Fauci and these other people have said is, okay, you have to stay home with the virus because we don't have enough hospital beds. We don't have enough ventilators. So here's the question. Why don't we have enough hospital beds? Why don't we have enough ventilators? Because of the government, because they've got certificate of need laws that you cannot build a hospital, you can't build a clinic, you can't even buy an MRI machine without getting permission and showing that you have cause. Well, why not just let people build a clinic, and if it goes bankrupt, it goes bankrupt? That's what every other industry does. Why not have the medical industry fight for our dollars the way car dealerships, computer manufacturers, and even grocery stores fight for our dollars? So why do we need the government in charge? And ever since the government got heavily involved with healthcare, putting more dollars in it, that's when prices started to skyrocket.
So I guess the worry is, look, I'm being devil's advocate, right?
Yeah.
Look, it's not about the money. It's clearly all you care about is the money because you're a greedy libertarian. It's about people, being able to survive this virus, which is killing us all. Don't we want to have government involved so that we can make sure we have enough beds and we can just order them to have more beds? See, we'll use the government to order them and then the beds will appear.
Yeah, what I would say is we've had certificate of need laws for decades, decades, and at least 30 years, if not longer. And, it's more of a state thing. So what I would say is, hey, if you hadn't been breaking our legs for the past 30 years, then maybe we wouldn't need a crutch from you. And guess what? You messed the system up a long time ago. And as far as the greedy money, I'd like to mention, I was in a third-party debate in March in Chicago, and the Socialists, the Green Party, different candidates were on the stage, and the Socialists said, I want to take the profits out of the doctors. Doctors shouldn't be working for profits. And my answer is you better hope doctors are working for profits, because what you have right now is you have a system in which doctors aren't trying to compete with other doctors. And if you look at the two specialties that are most free market in healthcare, it would be cosmetic surgery and LASIK surgery. And that's most free market because you spend your own dollars. You don't have the insurance company spending money for you. So you have your money. Now, since it's your money, you want to spend as little as possible for good quality because you get to keep the savings. Right. And what we've seen is those two specialties, we've seen prices go down, down, down dramatically, quality go up, up, up dramatically. And wouldn't that be great if the rest of healthcare were like that? Again, that's the way it is when you buy a car. If one dealership wants you to buy their car over another dealership, they got to offer you a better price and better quality. Why not have that in healthcare? And I'm sure you can't even get prices in healthcare. In fact, maybe 15 years ago, I didn't have health insurance for a while, and I needed an MRI. And so I thought, I'll call around and check prices. And every time I called, I would hear, oh, don't worry your little head, little lady, don't worry about that. Your insurance company will take care of that. I said, well, actually, I'm paying for it myself. Can you give me a price? Oh, we don't have prices. I mean, imagine going to buy a car. Well, I'd like to know how much that model is. Oh, we don't have prices. You just pick what you want. They'll take care of it. No wonder prices are skyrocketing. And the insanity is that the Democrats are suggesting they want more of it. And the Republicans who are giving lip service to having a free market, we can see how fast Trump has moved on that we need to get rid of Obamacare, and we need to have doctors working for us. And I don't want to put blame on the doctors, because the doctors are, they're in a mess too, like the rest of us. They're overburdened with the insurance forms, with paperwork, with everything else. And if you relate it to, let's say, car insurance, imagine if every time you went to buy gas or oil or get a car wash, imagine if You had to fill out a form in triplicate and send it in to the insurance company, and they pay for it. And of course, would you shop around for the cheapest gas? No. What do you care? You go to the gas station that gives you a free cup of coffee while you wait, and you pay your $5 copay, and off you go. So
right.
It's no wonder prices have gone through the roof. And once again, government is at the root of that.
So what do you think is the biggest part when you're president? Is the biggest part using the bully pulpit? Is the biggest part trying to change law? Is the biggest part trying to influence insurance companies? Like, how does a president, what we're talking about here is, as everyone knows, it's a massive undertaking, right? It's a massive undertaking. We've got insurance, hospital cartels. You've got everyone who's lobbyists, right? Big pharma. I mean, there's so much there. How does a president begin this process of kind of tearing this down or fixing it? What's the beginning?
First of all, Medicare and Medicaid. And you make a good point as president, because a lot of these laws are at the state, and I can only handle at the federal level.
Sure.
But what we have right now is, again, we have people who don't shop around. And I like Singapore's system. I'd like to point out that Singapore has much lower prices. Their prices are about 75% lower than ours in many cases.
Wow.
Yeah, just to give you an example, in the United States, it costs about $130,000 for open heart surgery. In Singapore, it's about $18,000. Now, $18,000 is still a lot of money, but people buy cars for $18,000. Right now, if you're in this country and the insurance company doesn't okay your surgery, you're kind of stuck over there. It's like paying a car, but it's still an option. So what they do is, rather than having a monopoly like the VA, where it's like, okay, come here and go to the doctors, and there's no incentive, but go to here's our approved doctors. Instead, they put healthcare dollars actually in people's accounts, and then the citizens actually go around with those dollars and shop. And actually, it works here. It has worked here in the United States. The state of Indiana put something like this in, and they actually funded the accounts. And what's interesting is, and again, you never spend somebody else's money as well as you spend your own. What happened was, before they instituted the program, only 10% of people were buying generic drugs. And why should they buy generic drugs? They don't. Right. So after the program was instituted, with only like a year or two, something like 90% of the drugs bought were generic. It went from 10% to 90% almost overnight. And here's the best part about it, is the people were glad to buy the generic drugs because they got to keep the savings.
Right.
Again, you shop around for a car or groceries, you get to keep the savings. That's the way the state employees of Indiana have been doing, and it's been working great.
So you're saying there's some way at the federal level to create some type of debit card or something like that, so people could have the option of actually purchasing their own health care. They could go to better doctors, or doctors could have cheaper prices, that kind of system?
Right, exactly. At least for what the federal government is in charge. Because, we can't just say, okay, we're going to just stop Medicare and Medicaid today. Or we're just, everybody's out on your own. If we stopped making these payments, the people wouldn't be able to afford any kind of health care, because we've got the bloated prices. We've got the $130,000 for open heart surgery. So instead, what we need to do is we need to have competition so that the prices go down before we kind of basically let the system loose.
Well, that's, I was bringing that up. The idea of what government is at its core is two things. It is a monopoly, and it's a massive jobs program, right? So if you topple the monopoly without having anything, you've got nothing, because it's a monopoly, right? So your point, I love your point. Your entire point is, let's get some competition going, so if the monopoly falls, no one even notices.
Right, exactly.
Because you've got everything else there, so no one even notices. And if the jobs won't go away, because they'll just go into other arenas, and the jobs will still be there too.
Exactly. And what we have to do is we have to have these smaller items, the medical equivalent of gas, oil, tune-ups, car washes.
Checkups.
Checkups, right.
Mhm.
So why why do we need to go through all that paperwork and approval for the insurance company to get a routine thing that costs a lot less than even a car repair does?
Right. Sure. Sure.
So by getting rid of a lot of that, that'll drive down costs right away, because again, people shop around for the best gas prices. I think they'll start shopping around for the best checkup. And I'd like to add that some people criticize saying, well, but if people have to pay the whole thing out of their pocket, then they might not get the preventative medicine. They might not. Then they might wait too long for cancer screenings. And that's not what the data show. If you look at Indiana, if you look at Singapore, you'll see that people, if anything, they are a little heavier on preventative maintenance because they know that they're going to have to pay a part of that maintenance. And last, there would be incentive for people to be healthy. Somebody who had written a book about the Singapore system tells this great story about how he was over there interviewing doctors, nurses, patients. Everybody loves the system. And he said, wow, this is great. We need to bring it to America, which Indiana did that. And until one day he was getting a cab ride and he told the cab driver, hey, I'm here learning about your healthcare system. And the cab driver was like, I hate it because I got to work out 3 times a week. And he said, well, that's funny. So the government makes you work out at the gym? And he goes, oh, no, they don't make me work out. But if I don't work out and I got diabetes or I get overweight or something like that, then I got to pay part of those costs. So there was a financial incentive to basically maintain your health. And we don't have that right now.
No, that's true. I think our system right now actually hopes that you're sick because that's how they get paid.
Yeah. And imagine if you had car insurance in which you've got 5 DUIs, no problem. Guess what? You get the same low rate as, the little old 45-year-old librarian who goes over 50 miles an hour. I'm sorry to stereotype here, but I'm trying to come up with the everybody's idea of who a very safe driver would be. And by the way, notice I'm not pointing to myself, but somebody who has 5 DUIs absolutely should be paying a higher car insurance rate than somebody who's never been in an accident in their lives, never had a speeding ticket. And why can't we have that with healthcare? And we should.
Okay. All right. So I have a question a little bit off, but
Okay.
do you support the Convention of States specifically for imposing term limits on Congress?
I would love to see term limits on Congress again. And this is, I realize this is a controversial topic.
It is.
Because I, on the other hand, the argument against it is that, well, instead of the politicians having power, now the political parties will have power and they can move around their politicians like chess pieces. So either one is not the ideal. Again, my goal is to get government so small that we don't need term limits, because if we look at who's in Washington now, it's people who are power hungry, people who like Animal Farm, who are more equal than others.
Yes.
And when our Constitution was written, the whole idea was that the citizen statesmen would go to Washington, pass laws for a couple months, and then go home and live under those laws. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden has never lived under a law that he has passed for the past 40 years. And a lot of people don't know this, but after they passed the Civil Rights Act, race, creed, color, so forth, you can't discriminate. A lot of people don't know that Congress didn't have to follow that same rule. And I saw an interview with a prominent Democratic congressman who was asked, well, don't you think that Congress should have to do the same thing? Shouldn't you pass a law? So, shouldn't you be under that jurisdiction? And he kind of puffed up his chest and said, I should be able to hire whoever I want. And this is after passing the law.
Wow.
That us. So not only do they not go home to live under the laws, but they've got this nice little bubble in Washington. By the way, no, I'm not. This isn't because I went out to a nightclub last night. Here at the convention, just to let the viewers know, they take your temperature. You can't get in without your temperature you're safe. So no, not a late night of partying.
Okay.
So
not that would be a problem, Dr. Joe. It'd be fine if it was. No worries.
Well, after all, I keep saying my drug of choice is bourbon, but so we've got people who are just so far removed from reality. You know, Nancy Pelosi, it's almost like the property of gravity doesn't apply to her. You know,
yes.
The economics doesn't apply to her because she's got her own little bubble, her own little rules that she lives under.
You know, it's funny that you said that. I think this is one of the things that drives many Americans crazy is the idea that the people who are running the show really are a separate class, a separate aristocracy who don't understand what's actually happening with us.
Yep. Animal Farm all over again. And they are just so far removed. And so I would like to get rid of the professional politicians. But I'd also like to point out that, you know, Republicans thought that Trump would be a great answer to this because he's not a professional politician. Because
sure.
He came in as a supposed outsider. And that's why all the polls got it wrong, because people voted for him who hadn't voted in decades or never voted. Well, now what do we have? Increased deficits. We've got people being told to stay home. We've got the CARES Act. And my response to the CARES Act is, yeah, they care all right for their special interests and lobbyists. So, you know.
This is a great point. Let me go down this road. Now they've done this, right? They put us away. CARES Act comes out. Financial devastation for tens of millions of Americans. Businesses gone. Jobs lost. Homes will be lost. There's going to be a bunch of evictions coming up here. People being displaced. How do we get out of this without what everyone's going to start saying is there's got to be some form of government bailout, right? Everyone's going to be talking about government bailout. Everybody's going to want a government bailout. Is the government bailout our only option? Is that the only we can do, or is there another option? How do we get out of this?
No, we need the opposite. We need as many dollars out of the government as possible. In fact, research is pretty clear that if you put the same amount of money in the private sector as you do the government sector, you get twice as many jobs. So instead of putting, you know, if you think about it, if, you know, jobs programs, if we give the money to the government to go out and create these jobs programs, the money has to come from somewhere. It's coming from taxpayers who could have spent their own money. And personally, I would rather be spending my money in my local town, local businesses, not going to these big corporations, not going to the people that Washington, you know, that gives Washington their contributions to run their campaigns. So once again, yeah, Animal Farm.
Yeah. Okay. So when people, I mean, this obviously big business is going to cry for a bailout, right? Airline industry is going to say, probably hotels, I would assume, probably all the hospitals that we told them they can't take other patients, right? We forced them into not taking the profitable patients and forced them to taking COVID patients, no matter what, we forced them to doing that. And many of them lost money. A lot of them are going to be claiming bankruptcy. Is it the right answer to do some type of bailout for the essentials or no?
Again, the money is better spent by individuals and bureaucrats. Who do you want spending the money? You or people in Washington who have political favors to pay back? So again, the money is much better spent by individuals, and it's morally right. And you know, one story that I love, one of my favorite examples, and this happened in the early 90s, and it's just a classic about why people can spend money better than the government. So a lot of people say, well, but what about charity? You know, people don't donate money unless they have to. Well, I'd like to go back to the last few hundred years and see how even the supposed titans of industry, the big corporations, even those people still were very generous. Mm-hmm. And what happened in the early 90s was the president or CEO of United Way bought $400,000 worth of artwork. And keep in mind, that's closer to $1 million right now. And what happened was donations dried up because people were saying, you know what, we didn't give you money to go out and buy fancy artwork. We gave you that money to give to people in need. And so what United Way had to do is they had to basically work their butts off to come up with, to get the trust back, to convince that to donors that yes, we are going to spend the money where it needs to go. Now, imagine if that same money had gone to the federal government, and let's say the federal government had high overhead. What happens? They just raise your taxes more.
Yes.
So there's no accountability. So in order to have accountability, then let people put the money where they want to. And I'd like to point out that with Bill Gates, and sometimes these people, they've got to be smart to have made the billions that they have. But sometimes, can you just step back and look big picture here? Bill Gates keeps saying, we need bigger government, take more of my money. Okay, Bill Gates, here's what I want to know. How come you founded the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation instead of simply giving all that money to the big government? If you think government is such the answer, and I got to tell you, for me, I would much rather give my money to Bill Gates to spend. I trust Bill Gates. And by the way, maybe I shouldn't say that now that I'm the nominee. I shouldn't be taking sides. But I am highly critical of what Bill Gates has been doing in the government sphere. Even so, I would trust him and his wife, Melinda, to spend my charity dollars much better than the federal government.
I'm with you on that. No matter what you think about Bill Gates, if I'm going to give my money away, I'd rather give it to him than to the federal government. That's guaranteed. Yes, on board 100%. Absolutely. I guess the issue I'll ask is the same kind of thing. How do you start that as president, right? Realizing that a lot of these local communities, right, are going to be having to open up, and a lot of mayors and governors, they're the ones who right now are making more of the decisions on how an economy opens up. What does a president do in that regard? Is this bully pulpit? Is this policy? Is this just trying to change? Is this trying to change, the debt level? What are we doing here at the federal level?
Yeah, it's part bully pulpit. And notice it was President Trump with Dr. Fauci next to him on stage leading the way. You need to shut down. You need to shut down. And I was so thrilled to see the people of Michigan fight back and say, we're not going to put up with this anymore. And, 3 of my grandparents are immigrants from Sweden and Denmark. And my grandmother used to tell me stories about the old country and how they didn't get to make as many choices. And basically you could work as hard as you wanted and the government just took all your money. And so they came here wanting to make a better life, very individualistic, very, hardworking, entrepreneurial. In fact, both of my grandfathers started small businesses. And so I was beginning to think when everybody was locked up, maybe we've lost that American spirit. But when I saw the people in Michigan saying, we don't care what the governor says, we're getting in our cars and we're going around the state house, I thought, well, good. We've got some of that rugged individualism left that this country was founded on, where people get to make their own decisions.
Because that did scare me. I mean, as unhappy as I was with my governor in New York State, the worst, right, shutting us down and not allowing me to even go do my work anymore, what bothered me more than anything else was the idea that the people didn't really rebel much. We just said, okay, yes. And then we started telling on each other. We became our own secret police voluntarily, right? We call, how dare her not wear a mask? Go get them, cops. We became that person. Does it, and this is a personal question, do you ever feel like we're just going in such the wrong direction? Do you ever get discouraged when you see that kind of thing happen?
Well, I was getting discouraged until I saw Michigan fight back. And then I felt so much better. And you mentioned New York. Keep in mind where you live. And I would suggest that, yes, if you look at the way people vote and you look at, basically their mindset, yes, if there were a place in this country, that would be the number one place where people could be led. And let me mention something else that really gave me hope. And I'm using Michigan because that was one of the first states that led the way. And there have been many states since then. But I'd like to point out what has really given me hope. And this is going to sound like a shameless plug, but I have to mention it. My whole campaign team, we were surprised, I got to admit, but ecstatic to find out that from the very start, over half of our volunteers have been from people outside the Libertarian Party.
Nice.
And that's usually not the way it works, especially with the Libertarian Party candidate, because usually you've got your core group and then they tell their friends and then finally it spreads out. And I just went to Oklahoma a couple weeks ago and I asked the state coordinator there, who are you seeing coming up? And she's like, oh, all these people in which, were never a member of the Libertarian Party. And there was one woman there who was a super strong supporter. She had never heard of me until like a week before. So completely outside. And in fact, they had reserved this restaurant. It was like a banquet or anything, just a local restaurant where people could go have dinner. And by the way, Jo Jorgensen's going to come here. You can meet her. The restaurant was packed to capacity. And there were something like 30, 40 people outside in line in 90-degree heat. And this was only on 24 hours notice that they put it together. And so many people, and Oklahoma, I used to live in Dallas, so I know the spirit of people in Oklahoma. They were just like, this is nuts that what our federal government is doing. And I just keep hearing this, and just the fact that our movement is growing, and they see the two old rich white guys and say, I don't see much of a choice here. So I see that. Overwhelming. It's just been great.
What I see is, I see people for like Kentucky that has a blue governor, even though it's a red state, right? And it's not that the people in Kentucky actually like Democrats. I think they're still a red state. They prefer Republicans. They're just so unhappy with what the Republicans are doing that it's basically a protest vote. Yes. And they don't know where else to go. Well, they could go to the Libertarian Party. They could go to joj2020.com. There's your protest vote. I mean, you should probably listen to what she has to say. Also, I'll take the protest vote, though. Yes. But please, I'll take every vote I can get. Absolutely. But I think it's a really important point you bring up. People are unhappy with their establishment, right? They really are.
And on top of that, there's been an estimated 40 to 45 million American voters out there who do lean libertarian, who either just don't know it yet, haven't discovered us, and who really are tired of the same old, same old. And again, I completely understand why people voted for Trump. He looked like an outsider. He talked like an outsider. The media treated him like an outsider. And yet he came in and he did the same thing other Republicans do, which is to spend more money, increase spending, increase the debt. And I think that shows us that if a supposed outsider like that can't come in and fix things, then I think all hope is gone. I mean, you and I, Larry, we've known for many years that there's no hope for the Republican Party. But I think now even the most casual observer has to say, you know what? If even Trump couldn't come in and make government smaller, there's no hope.
So let me touch Trump if I could for a second. Trump recently is threatening now to withhold funds from schools if they don't open up. And a lot of people aren't happy, whether they want the school to open up or not. Some people are like, why is Trump forcing schools to open? Some people are like, why is Trump even getting his hands involved? Right? Again, as president, this goes to what we talked about earlier, right? This is really a local issue. I mean, the federal government obviously has its fingers in it because they're giving money out, right? So that's how the DOE makes its money and makes things happen by using its cash give outs. As president, what's your step here? How do you open up schools, or do you?
Well, first of all, on my list is to get rid of the Department of Education. We've had it around for 40 years. Not only has education not gotten better, some would argue that it's gone downhill. And
a lot would argue that.
Yes. And in fact, I teach at Clemson University, and I can tell you that when the new textbooks come out, and I'm not speaking about my school in particular, okay? I'm just talking about college textbooks. I get sample textbooks all the time from publishers. Hey, use our textbook. And in the beginning, they always tell you changes that they've made from the previous version, right? And pretty much every single time, we've taken the reading level down a notch. We've taken. Oh yeah, they've been doing that ever since I started teaching in 2006. So the same book that I've used every time, it comes out. The reading has come down a lot. They've made less reading, because of course students don't want to read as much. And so all you have to do is look at the textbooks and see that the textbooks are saying, you know what, the students coming out of college aren't as competitive as they were before. Now, of course, Clemson students, they're top of the heap, and the textbooks that go up, of course, right? But I'm just saying, look at the data, look at the textbooks, and so and also just education is, as you said, a local issue. The needs of the people in rural Appalachia completely different than downtown New York City, completely different than, let's say, LA. Different focus. And also, we've got to get rid of this idea of let's have government or free, right? Free education, as though Bernie Sanders is going to reach into his back pocket.
Right, exactly.
Because if you look at the stats now, if you have a college degree, statistically speaking, you can expect to make about $1 million more over your lifetime than somebody who doesn't go to college. Okay, so why do we and people who are cashiers are paying their taxes to a system which will then give free college to people who are going to become doctors, lawyers, and accountants?
Absolutely.
That's mean, and it's immoral. And I would say let the doctors, lawyers, and accountants pay for their own schooling.
That makes total sense. They're getting the benefit. Why shouldn't they pay for it?
Exactly. So
Absolutely.
it seems so simple.
So, Dr. Joe, I want to say I'm glad you came on. Is there anything you want to bring up before we wrap this up?
No, I would say I would love for all of your viewers to go to my website, joj2020.com. And as I mentioned, we're seeing a lot more non-libertarians, and not because the libertarians aren't interested, because they are, but we've just had so many people come in. And if you're not as politically minded, hey, just please vote for me in November, and to vote for what you really want.
Oh, I love that. Vote for Joe in November. And vote for what you really want. How could I possibly end the show on a better note than that? Head on over to joj2020.com. Dr. Joe, thank you so much for coming aboard. And everybody, thank you so much for watching.
Oh, so glad to be here. Thanks, Larry.
All righty.